Okay, the racing mower is finally back in the garage. I'm getting a bit antsy on this particular project, and the owner of the police replica bike thinks this is cool, and he'd love to see it up and running. And I know some other people would love to see this machine up and running as well. I've taken at least a 6 week hiatus on doing anything on this. I've been busy with other projects and other stuff going on. I have not touched this machine. I have received a few parts for it, but I have not done any work to this machine in at least 6 weeks. So it's definitely time to get back on it. I have received the brake caliper and disc. Hopefully, it's the right size. To be honest, I haven't even tested that yet because I got to drop the transaxle to test fit it. This transaxle is not going back in. I have the other one that's already been modified to go back into here. The belt's not hooked up. These belts are still just the temporary belts. The ones I bought just to make sure everything fits and will work. So these are not the permanent belts. They're permanent size, but not the actual permanent belts. The pulley setups are what they're going to be. I may end up having to change out the engine pulley. I do have one made up, ready to go for it. I think it's underneath the hood. That's just to show you how long it's been since I've worked on this. It should be sitting under the hood. But to mount it, since it's going to be right at the end of the crankshaft, it might be a little bit fun. Might have to get a little bit interesting how to mount it, or go back to the same company I got the brake disc from, and they sell the pulleys for these as well. The two piece, which I didn't really want to run on this, but I might not have a choice. But we'll discuss that when the time comes. So I posted a sneak peek short of this. It was actually done a few minutes before I started this actual video, and here's the actual video. I don't know when it's going to be posted as of yet, but really this thing should be actually considered a hoopty. But I think I'm kind of using that term a little bit too much, and people will probably start complaining if I do continue using it, even though a hoopty definition is something that's a piece of junk, but this really isn't a piece of junk, so I guess it's not a hoopty. But anyways, the plan is tomorrow, not right now, it's after 8 o'clock right now, to pull this engine out. This is the Briggs & Stratton 21 horsepower single cylinder. It's labeled Craftsman because actually it came in a Craftsman. This engine is 340 cc's. It's easier to pause it and look at it instead of showing it through the camera. But it runs pretty good. It was actually in an abandoned machine, which was definitely a hoopty, and that machine has now since went for scrap. So engine runs very nice. A few things I don't like about this engine: it doesn't have an oil pressure sender or a spot to put a sender for oil pressure. So that's one thing I don't like about this engine, and its overall physical size. It's very deep. So when I first put this engine in, there's a plate in here that separates the engine from the battery compartment at the front. Because the battery's in front on this to keep as much weight as possible towards the front. So I'm thinking this machine most likely did like doing wheelies. So anyways, with the engine I would like to put in here, it's hopefully going to allow me to put the battery back up front. They were either running what I'm going to be running in here, or they were running a L head, which I'm definitely not putting L head in here. I don't mind L heads, but I don't like L heads, so I'm definitely sticking with overhead valve, and I am going back to a twin cylinder, which I kind of do think they were running, judging by the length of the cables. So I don't think they were running an L head unless they had cables wrapping around the front of the engine, which I don't know. I never saw pictures of the original engine, and I know when it comes to the racing community, some stuff is kept a secret when it comes to what you're running and what you're running for your pulleys. Something I can tell you is this machine was banned from a lot of different tracks because it was too fast. I was told the engine was pushing 36 horsepower. So the engine didn't blow up. They blew up the rear end. So yeah. I just paused and looked. My pulley is sitting underneath here. I originally thought that one right there was it, but it's not. It's hiding down in there. As you can see, some stuff has definitely gotten a little bit rusty on this as well from it just sitting around, which I feel bad for letting it sit around, but I just haven't had time to work on it, unfortunately. But I definitely do want to get back into this project. I don't want to lose interest in it. So anyways, I'll show you in a second the engine that will be going in here. As long as the exhaust will work. That's another thing I've been looking at, how to run the exhaust. I'm trying to keep as much heat out of the engine compartment as possible. Keep the engine running nice and cool. And again, with this engine here, yes, it can be done. It can actually be done quite easily. But really, it's going to put a lot of the exhaust near that tire right there, which I don't want. I like to keep the exhaust as close to the frame as possible. And again, with the engine I plan on running in here, that's basically the way it's going to be. Here's another example. This is the choke cable. So you can see how long it is. So it was basically way up here. So I have not changed that cable. That's the way it came whenever I got this machine. So anyways, that's what I'm kind of going for and going at. I definitely think this machine did have a twin cylinder of some sort in it originally. I don't think it had as small of a twin cylinder as I plan on putting in it, but I think it most definitely did have a twin cylinder. Okay, here is the twin cylinder I do plan on putting in that machine. This is a 12.5 horsepower Briggs & Stratton Vanguard. I've kind of went into detail on this engine in a previous video, and I did kind of hint on putting it into the racer. Most likely that is the way it's going to be going. I will be adding electric fuel pump though. I'm not going to be keeping with the vacuum fuel pump, so I'll be going electric fuel pump with regulator and fuel return back to the tank, similar to the setup I had on my old racing mower. So this stock fuel pump will be going away, so stock style fuel pump will be going away, and I'll probably be putting a catch can on that valve cover right there, which the place I got the brake caliper that doesn't fit, they sell the catch cans for these as well. So this engine here runs. It does have a good charging system. It actually currently has reasonable oil, I believe. Let me just take a peek. Yeah, it needs to be changed, but it's not horrible. It does have this oil line coming off the back. That does leak a little bit. It does seep when it's running. So that does have to be addressed. I don't think this engine has any other drains. So that will have to be addressed as well. And being a Vanguard, it does have the oil pressure sender right there, which that can be replaced and have it run up to a gauge, or I can just have an idiot light. I prefer a gauge. I would like to still keep my tach, so I'll probably have to drill another hole in my dashboard to run the gauge. I can also get an oil cooler for this. I've had oil coolers on these Vanguards in the past. Actually, I forget if I still have a Vanguard. No, the Vanguard, the horizontal Vanguard I have does not have an oil cooler. But really, the setup on these, from the big engines to the smaller engines, besides the actual cylinders themselves and the block size themselves, are pretty well the same. You can fit a lot of the larger parts on the smaller engines and smaller parts from the smaller engines on larger engines, except for when it comes to the heads. That's really the only difference, is up in the heads on these, as far as I know, as far as what I've seen on other videos. So for the tach, I'll be running the tach off of one cylinder or the other. It should work. It won't be 100% accurate, but it will work, and I think it will work out fine for what I plan on doing. This engine here was very cheap. I paid less than $40 for this engine, and really, for what I get for YouTube revenue, paid for this engine, and who really cares what ends up happening to it. So I really don't want to hurt it, but if something does end up happening to it, it's not a huge deal. And basically, if something was to happen to this engine here, I probably would feel more bad than I would that Vanguard. So anyways, that's just an update on what's happening. I'll be digging into this tomorrow, pull the engine out. It is a bit of a bugger to get the engine out. I'm going to put it up on jack stands. I would also like to get the rear end taken out and test fit the new brake disc, caliper, all those parts, test fit all that. And I would like to finally get the pillow block bearings mocked up on here as well, so I can get them mocked up so they can get installed. And I need to get the ends of each axle welded so my hub extensions will actually stay in place and go from there. So really, as you can see, it's too narrow. That side there, the axle ends just a little bit past the frame, and this side here has the hub extension on it. And if you know these axles, I have to get it welded between the end and where the clip would go in to lock it in place. So I got to put a little bit of weld put in there. I already have keys that will set in place, and basically the bearings themselves will help hold the keys in place. And it's a bit of a complicated setup, but really it's the only way to make this work unless you can make custom axles. I'll have somebody who can make custom length axles, which I don't. I don't have that luxury, unfortunately. I could probably find someone who could do it, but this is a budget build, or at least it started off as a budget build. And it's not spiraling out of control. It's just, I want to get it done. And I want to drive it, basically. And I want to see how it does. I'm tired of it sitting on the back ramp and just sitting there sad, and when it rains, it just looks even more sad. So anyways, that's pretty much it for this. Bit of a long video, but it's still here. And I'm hoping to get a little bit closer to actually driving it very soon. It will not, definitely won't be running tomorrow or driving tomorrow, but it's slowly working up to being able to run and drive. So anyways, there we go. I'll talk to you later. Please keep it redneck like always, and please subscribe and comment.